A long career often brings an unexpected challenge. The very success that opens doors can quietly begin to define, and sometimes limit, who the world believes you are. For Farrah Fawcett, that tension became impossible to ignore. At the height of her visibility, she was more than a television star. She had become an image the public instantly recognized. But when an image grows powerful enough to shape expectations, it can also make professional evolution more difficult. This story is not about celebrity headlines or nostalgia alone. It is about what happens when fame creates a role so strong that the industry, and even the audience, expects it to remain unchanged. For anyone who has spent decades building a career, that question may feel surprisingly familiar. So let's take a closer look at how Farrah Fawcett navigated the pressure of success and what it reveals about long careers. In every long career, there is usually a single moment when recognition arrives faster than anyone expected. For Farrah Fawcett, that moment came when American television was entering one of its most powerful cultural eras. During the mid-1970s, network television dominated American households in a way few media platforms ever have. 3 major networks controlled the primetime landscape, and a successful series could instantly reach tens of millions of viewers every week. When a show captured public attention, its actors were no longer simply performers, they became national figures. This was the environment in which Charlie's Angels appeared. The series blended action, glamour, and modern independence in a way that resonated strongly with audiences at the time. Television was beginning to experiment with portraying women as confident and capable protagonists, and the show's format gave that shift a highly visible platform. Among the central characters, Farrah Fawcett's Jill Monroe quickly stood out. Her performance carried a particular combination of qualities that audiences responded to immediately. She appeared energetic, confident, and approachable at the same time. Rather than presenting a distant Hollywood glamour, her presence felt relatable. Viewers did not simply admire the character, they felt connected to her. Within months, Farrah's visibility expanded far beyond the television screen. Magazine covers, promotional campaigns, and cultural commentary quickly followed. Her image became part of the broader visual landscape of the decade. In a media environment that depended heavily on recognizable faces, this kind of exposure turned her into one of the most identifiable figures in American entertainment. But breakthroughs rarely change only one thing. They reshape expectations. In professional terms, the success of Charlie's Angels did more than elevate Farrah's career. It also established a powerful public identity around her. The character that had introduced her to audiences became the framework through which the industry interpreted her future potential. For many professionals who have spent decades building careers of their own, this moment may feel familiar. A breakthrough achievement can open opportunities, but it can also create a reputation that becomes difficult to expand beyond. In Farrah's case, the television industry of the 1970s was particularly sensitive to proven formulas. Networks preferred stability over risk, and producers often sought to reproduce the elements that had already demonstrated strong audience appeal. When a performer became closely associated with a successful role, the safest business decision was often to repeat that image rather than redefine it. As a result, Farrah's breakthrough created both momentum and constraint. Her rising visibility gave her extraordinary cultural influence, yet it also began narrowing how the industry perceived her capabilities. Instead of asking what new directions her career might take, many decision-makers focused on preserving the qualities that had already captured public attention. This shift marks a subtle but important transition that occurs in many long careers. At first, success brings freedom. Recognition creates options and expands possibilities. But over time, that same recognition can become a fixed expectation, one that encourages repetition instead of evolution. For Farrah Fawcett, the breakthrough of Charlie's Angels placed her squarely at the center of American popular culture. It was an extraordinary achievement and one that defined the visual identity of an entire era. Yet the very success that elevated her also introduced a quiet question that would shape the rest of her professional journey. How does an actor grow when the role that made her famous becomes the role the world expects her to remain? That question would soon lead to the next phase of her story, when success began creating a different kind of pressure. Once a breakthrough reaches the scale Farrah Fawcett experienced, the conversation around a performer begins to change. The focus shifts from discovery to expectation. Audiences are no longer asking who this new star might become, they begin assuming they already know. In the late 1970s, Farrah's image quickly moved beyond the boundaries of television storytelling. Her presence on Charlie's Angels was no longer simply a character performance, it became a symbol that audiences associated with a specific cultural mood. Confidence, beauty, athleticism, and a kind of approachable optimism all merged into a single public identity. The entertainment industry noticed this immediately. Networks and studios tend to protect what audiences respond to most strongly. When a particular image proves commercially powerful, the system around it often works to preserve that image as consistently as possible. The safest decision, from a business perspective, is to maintain familiarity. For Farrah, that meant the qualities that first captured public attention soon became the qualities people expected to see repeated. Her public identity began narrowing. The character that introduced her to millions gradually blended with the person audiences believed they understood. Instead of viewing her as a performer capable of many different roles, the industry increasingly treated her as the living representation of the character that had made her famous. This type of pressure rarely arrives dramatically. It builds slowly. At first, it appears as admiration. The public celebrates a particular version of a performer, and that admiration generates enormous visibility. But over time, admiration can harden into expectation. And expectations create boundaries. For viewers who have spent 20 or 30 years building their own careers, this pattern can feel very familiar. Early success often highlights one strength, one achievement that becomes widely recognized. Yet as the years pass, the same strength can begin shaping how colleagues, organizations, and even entire industries interpret your professional identity. The challenge becomes clear: how do you expand beyond the version of success that everyone already recognizes? In Farrah's case, the cultural momentum surrounding her image made that expansion particularly difficult. The television system of the era depended heavily on recognizable faces and consistent character identities. When audiences responded strongly to a particular persona, networks had little incentive to encourage change. This dynamic created a quiet tension. On one hand, Farrah had achieved extraordinary cultural recognition. Her image represented one of the most memorable moments in television history. On the other hand, that very recognition risked defining the boundaries of her career. The more iconic the image became, the harder it was to separate the performer from the symbol. Many Americans who have navigated long careers understand this moment well. The responsibilities that come with success often include maintaining the trust people place in your expertise. Yet those same expectations can sometimes make it difficult to demonstrate new dimensions of your work. Farrah faced this dilemma in one of the most visible industries in the world. Public admiration had elevated her to cultural icon status, but it also placed her within a professional framework that encouraged repetition rather than reinvention. The entertainment industry had discovered a powerful image, and the system naturally wanted to preserve it. But sustaining a long career requires more than repeating what worked once. Eventually, every professional who hopes to grow must decide how to respond when success begins shaping expectations too tightly. For Farrah Fawcett, that moment would lead to one of the most significant strategic decisions of her career. When expectations around a public image become too rigid, the only way to preserve a long career is often through deliberate repositioning. For Farrah Fawcett, this phase required a careful balance between honoring the success that introduced her to audiences and asserting greater control over how her professional identity would evolve. The pressure surrounding her image after Charlie's Angels made one thing clear: remaining within the exact framework that had created her fame could eventually limit the trajectory of her career. The television industry of the late 1970s was structured around stability. Networks preferred performers who reinforced proven formulas, and stars closely associated with successful shows were often encouraged to remain within those identities for as long as possible. Yet long-term positioning requires a broader view. Farrah began recognizing that if her professional identity remained permanently tied to a single cultural image, the industry might never fully see the range of her abilities. The challenge was not simply choosing new roles, it was redefining how decision-makers interpreted her place within the entertainment landscape. This is where autonomy becomes critical in a career. Autonomy does not always appear dramatic from the outside. It often unfolds through a series of strategic choices about projects, collaborators, and the types of roles one is willing to pursue. In Farrah's case, maintaining autonomy meant gradually shifting attention away from the image that had defined her early fame and toward performances that emphasized character depth and emotional complexity. Such adjustments rarely produce immediate results. Audiences and industries both need time to recalibrate their expectations. When a performer becomes strongly associated with a single role, any attempt to broaden that perception must unfold gradually. Each new project becomes part of a longer process of repositioning. For many viewers who have spent decades building their own careers, this phase may feel particularly familiar. Early recognition often grows from mastering one skill or role exceptionally well. But sustaining relevance over 30 or 40 years requires expanding that skill set and demonstrating capabilities that were not immediately visible at the start. Farrah approached this challenge with a long-term perspective. Rather than competing directly with the cultural image that had made her famous, she began selecting roles that highlighted different dimensions of her craft. Television films and more dramatic performances offered opportunities to explore characters that demanded emotional nuance rather than relying primarily on visual charisma. From a strategic standpoint, these choices served two purposes. First, they protected her autonomy as an actress. By stepping into roles that required deeper dramatic engagement, she demonstrated that her career would not be permanently defined by the image that first brought her recognition. Second, these projects repositioned her within the industry. Producers and directors began to see her not only as a symbol of a particular television moment, but as a performer capable of navigating more complex storytelling. Long-term positioning in any profession often depends on moments like this, when individuals decide whether to remain inside the expectations created by early success or to gradually reshape those expectations through new work. Farrah's repositioning reflects a professional awareness that many experienced viewers understand well. The most resilient careers are rarely built by repeating the same achievement indefinitely. They are built by expanding the narrative others associate with your work. Through strategic adjustments in the types of projects she pursued, Farrah Fawcett began widening that narrative. The process did not erase the iconic image that had defined her breakthrough, but it placed that image within a broader context, one that allowed her career to extend beyond a single defining moment and move toward a more enduring professional identity. Strategic repositioning can open new possibilities, but sustaining a long career ultimately requires something deeper than professional decisions alone. It requires recalibration, an evolving understanding of identity, purpose, and relevance as both the industry and the individual change over time. For Farrah Fawcett, this stage became essential in shaping how her career would be understood beyond the moment that first made her famous. As the years progressed, the entertainment industry itself was changing. New television formats emerged, film production expanded in different directions, and younger performers entered the spotlight. The cultural moment that had originally elevated Farrah during the late 1970s was gradually giving way to new trends and new faces. For any performer whose early career is closely tied to a particular era, this transition can present a difficult question: how does one remain meaningful when the industry itself is moving forward? Aging in the public eye introduces a unique professional dynamic. Unlike many other professions where experience naturally strengthens authority, entertainment industries have historically emphasized youth as a central part of visibility. Actors who become cultural icons early in their careers often find that the public memory of their younger image remains unusually strong. For Farrah, this meant that the iconic image that had defined her breakthrough continued to shape audience expectations long after the original cultural moment had passed. But sustaining relevance rarely comes from attempting to preserve the past exactly as it was. Instead, Farrah's later career decisions reflected an understanding that longevity depends on allowing professional identity to evolve alongside experience. Rather than competing with the image that first made her famous, she gradually moved toward projects that emphasized maturity, emotional complexity, and narrative substance. This shift was not abrupt. It unfolded gradually through the types of roles she chose and the kinds of stories she participated in. Over time, her performances demonstrated a willingness to engage with characters whose strength came not from youthful image but from emotional depth and life experience. For many viewers who have spent 20 or 30 years navigating their own careers, this stage of professional life often carries similar reflections. Early success may rely on energy, momentum, and visibility. But long-term relevance tends to grow from different qualities, judgment, perspective, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Farrah's recalibration illustrates that process clearly. Instead of attempting to maintain the same cultural role she had occupied during her breakthrough years, she allowed her work to reflect the natural progression of experience. The characters she portrayed began to mirror the complexities of adulthood in ways that resonated more deeply with audiences who themselves had lived through decades of personal and professional change. In doing so, she shifted the narrative surrounding her career. What had once been seen primarily through the lens of television iconography gradually became part of a broader professional story, one that included persistence, adaptability, and a commitment to craft that extended beyond the expectations of a single cultural moment. Sustaining relevance across decades often depends on this kind of recalibration. The professionals who endure are rarely those who attempt to freeze their careers at the moment of greatest visibility. Instead, they allow their identities to expand, integrating experience into the work they continue to do. Farrah Fawcett's later career reflected that principle. By embracing roles that acknowledged maturity and complexity, she demonstrated that relevance does not require returning to the past. It requires allowing one's professional identity to grow alongside the passage of time. Through this gradual recalibration, her career continued moving forward, not as a repetition of an earlier image, but as a reflection of a performer willing to evolve with the realities of a long professional life. When looking back at Farrah Fawcett's career, the most revealing lesson is not simply the scale of her fame, but the way she navigated the complex responsibilities that success created. Her story illustrates something many people discover over the course of long professional lives: the breakthrough that opens doors is rarely the same force that sustains a career across decades. Managing success often proves more complicated than achieving it. Early recognition can arrive suddenly, and when it does, the surrounding system quickly begins to define what that success is supposed to look like going forward. In Farrah's case, the cultural moment created by Charlie's Angels elevated her into one of the most recognizable figures in American television. That visibility created extraordinary opportunity, but it also established expectations about who she was supposed to remain. For many professionals who have spent 20 or 30 years in their own careers, this dynamic may feel familiar. When a particular achievement becomes widely associated with your identity, people often expect you to continue repeating that achievement indefinitely. The challenge becomes finding a way to respect the success that brought recognition while still allowing room for growth. This is where protecting autonomy becomes essential. Autonomy in a long career rarely comes from dramatic gestures. More often, it develops through a series of deliberate decisions about how one's work evolves. Choosing projects that reflect deeper values, expanding the scope of what one contributes, and gradually redefining how others interpret your abilities all become part of maintaining control over professional identity. Farrah's career reflects this process clearly. Instead of allowing her public image to permanently define the boundaries of her work, she gradually expanded the types of roles she pursued. These choices did not erase the cultural iconography that had made her famous, but they placed that image within a broader narrative, one that allowed her career to move forward rather than remain fixed in a single era. The third lesson from her story involves sustaining relevance across time. Relevance is often misunderstood. It does not always mean remaining at the center of public attention. Cultural moments naturally evolve, and every industry eventually introduces new voices and new perspectives. The professionals who endure are often those who adapt their contributions rather than trying to preserve the exact conditions that once made them successful. Farrah's later work reflected this kind of adaptation. By embracing roles that acknowledged maturity and emotional complexity, she demonstrated that longevity is not about resisting change. It is about integrating experience into the work that continues to be created. From a personal analytical perspective, her career reveals something important about how long professional journeys unfold. Early success can create a powerful identity, but identity is rarely static. Over time, individuals grow, industries change, and audiences themselves develop new expectations. The careers that remain meaningful across decades are often those where the individual quietly reshapes the narrative others associate with their work. Farrah Fawcett's story reminds us that recognition may begin the journey, but thoughtful choices determine how that journey continues. Managing success, protecting autonomy, and sustaining relevance are not separate challenges, they are interconnected parts of building a professional life that can evolve over time. For viewers who have spent decades building their own careers, that lesson may resonate more deeply than any single moment of fame. What part of Farrah Fawcett's career journey speaks most to your own experience? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy thoughtful explorations of iconic careers like this, consider subscribing to continue the conversation with us.